Sri Lankan in Switzerland has passed away from COVID-19. Employees of the Free Trade Zone in Katunayake are ready to go back home. World Bank Group and IMF request all official bilateral creditors to suspend debt payments from developing nations to help face COVID-19 outbreak. The United States has more coronavirus cases than any other country with over 82,400.
Good afternoon, you're watching Lunchtime News on TV1. First, your lead story. The World Bank and the International Monetary Fund has requested all official bilateral creditors to suspend debt payments from developing nations to help face the COVID-19 outbreak.
In a joint statement to the G20, the World Bank and the IMF said the COVID-19 outbreak is likely to have severe economic and social consequences for the 76 countries in the International Development Association, home to a quarter of the world's population and two-thirds of the world's population living in extreme poverty. World Bank Group and the International Monetary Fund called on all official bilateral creditors to suspend debt payments from IDA countries or countries that are under the International Development Association with immediate effect and consistent with national laws of the creditor countries. Bolivia, Sri Lanka and Vietnam graduated from IDA at the end of 2017. However, global lending agencies said these three countries can receive transitional support on an exceptional basis. The statement said the suspension of debt payment will help with the ITA countries' immediate liquidity needs to tackle challenges posed by the COVID-19 and allow time for an assessment of the crisis impact and financing needs for each country. The statement further notes an endorsement for the proposal is expected at the Development Committee during the spring meetings from 16th April to the 17th.
The Treasury has stated that the country has sufficient funds to cope up with the expenditure of the government in the face of the current situation.
Secretary to the Finance Ministry S.R. Artigal said that the Treasury will disburse the required funds for all sectors such as security and health. He added that the necessary arrangements have been made to supply goods to the doorstep of the people under current situation. Meanwhile, the government has decided to pay the salaries of all state servants before the 10th of April. The Finance Ministry's Secretary S.R. Artigal said that necessary arrangements have been made to this effect as well. Meanwhile, the Finance Ministry says that the pensions of all retired public servants will be provided by the 3rd of April.
Now, the due date to settle VAT payments for February and March has been extended until the 30th of April. The Inland Revenue Department said that these payments made on or before the 30th of April would not be considered as the payments. The Inland Revenue Department said that these payments made on or before the 30th of April would not be considered as late payments. Accordingly, the fine imposed for late payments will not be made applicable for this situation. The Inland Revenue Department added that the expiry date of VAT registration certificates will expire before the 30th of April, which has been extended until the 30th of April. The police curfew in Puttalam, Mana, Kilnochi, Mullaitivu and Vaunia was lifted at 6 this morning, giving a window for the residents in these areas to purchase necessary essential items. The curfew will be reimposed at 2 p.m. today. The curfew in Jaffna and the high-risk zones of COVID-19, Colombo, Kalatura and Gampaha is in effect until further notice.
People were seen purchasing all essential items in the Puttalam district. Our correspondent said that the public followed health guidelines while purchasing goods. This was the situation in Vaunia after the curfew was lifted.
The process of sending home the employees of the Free Trade Zone in Katunayake commenced today.
A group was sent back home this morning following a medical inspection. We were going to send back the employees whose factories were closed at the Free Trade Zone, but there's a large number of people gathered here. There are those who are employed at functioning factories too. They are with families. We have an unexpected crowd here. We are hoping to send them back in batches with the help of the army and police. We are trying to send back those from the already closed down factories. We have made arrangements to quarantine these workers. This will be done by the police in a systematic manner. The army is carrying out duties based on the instructions issued by the health ministry. This will take some time, but we are left with no choice. We will have to take all health precautionary measures first. Meanwhile, employees at the Biagama investment zone arrived at the Biagama police to register themselves to go back home. They will be sent back following medical inspection.
And the number of COVID-19 patients in Sri Lanka currently stands at 106. 4 new patients were tested positive for yesterday. Meanwhile, 4 patients who were receiving treatment at the IDH in Angola were discharged after fully recovering. Accordingly, 7 patients have been cured thus far in Sri Lanka. According to the figures of the Ministry of Health, 99 COVID-19 patients are currently receiving treatment in the island. 237 suspected cases are also currently under medical supervision. The 4th batch of people who completed the quarantine process left for their homes today. Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva said more than 500 people have left for their homes upon completing the quarantine process.
163 people who arrived from overseas on the 12th of March and underwent quarantine in Punai left for their homes today. This was after completing the 14-day quarantine process. More than 500 people who completed the quarantine period left for their homes today. I believe that if we conduct ourselves in a disciplined manner, we can reduce the number of infected patients in the country. Those who left the quarantine center today had arrived from Italy, Iran and South Korea.
The Ministry of Foreign Relations said that a Sri Lankan has died due to COVID-19 in Switzerland. The deceased, who has been identified as a 59-year-old person named Sathasivam Loganathan, was originally from the Punkuruthivu area in Jaffna. He had been living with his relatives in Switzerland. At the time of his death, Loganathan had been under self-quarantine upon the advice of the Swiss police. His family told Newsfirst that they had not been able to contact him over the last few days before learning that he had passed away yesterday. Loganathan's final rites will be carried out today. Moreover, reports have emerged of another 32-year-old Sri Lankan national who had reportedly passed away owing to COVID-19 in France. However, when questioned about the incident, the Ministry of Foreign Relations only confirmed that a Sri Lankan is receiving treatment in the ICU of a hospital in France and said it is awaiting more details from officials in France. A lead story overseas: the United States has now more coronavirus cases than any other country, with more than 85,000 infections, pushing the total numbers worldwide to more than 531,000 as the global death toll surged past 24,000 as of early today. Now, there were more than 81,700 known cases in China and 80,500 in Italy. More than 122,000 people worldwide have recovered from COVID-19, while more than 24,054 people have died, including 1,288 in the US. Now, Italy reported the highest death toll with more than 8,200 deaths, which was the epicenter of the pandemic in Europe.
A British company behind a 10-minute coronavirus antibody test, which will only cost about $1, has begun sending prototypes to laboratories for validation, which could be a game changer in the fight against the pandemic. Antibody tests are designed to establish whether people have previously been infected, as opposed to antigen tests, which show if someone actually has the COVID-19 disease caused by the virus. Cases in Pakistan continue to steadily surge. The government reported 66 new cases yesterday, taking the total to 1,057, which is more than 3 times the number of cases a week ago. There is also a growing concern that the country will see a rise in imported COVID-19 cases from Iran, where the virus spiked like wildfire. Thailand reported 95 new coronavirus cases and 1 fatality, bringing the total to 1,136 cases and 5 deaths today. So far, 97 patients have recovered and gone home since the outbreak. South Korea has reported 91 new coronavirus cases today, bringing the total number of cases in the country to 9,332. Indonesia's flag carrier Garuda has returned from China today, carrying 40 tons of medical supplies, which will be distributed across the island immediately, where the new coronavirus patients have surged in the last few weeks. They were donations from several Chinese investors in Indonesia to help the country, as 78 people have died in the past 3 weeks and nearly 900 others tested positive. New Zealand confirmed at least 85 new coronavirus cases today. The total number of cases in the country has now reached 368, of which 37 have recovered. China's National Health Commission reported at least 54 new imported cases of coronavirus, slightly lower than the 67 cases reported on the previous day. The health agency also reported 5 new deaths, with no cases in Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak. Nationwide, the death toll has reached 3,292. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has just announced that all Australians returning to the nation will be quarantined for 14 days in hotels and other accommodations rather than their own homes. Australia's case numbers have escalated from 700 to over 3,000 in the past week.
Authorities in Italy have said the COVID-19 pandemic is spreading rapidly across southern Italy. A total of 80,539 COVID-19 cases have been reported in Italy, which has reported 8,215 deaths as well. Meanwhile, it is being reported that Sri Lankans residing in the cities of especially Venice, Naples, Monza and Milano are experiencing difficulties at present. They urge on all Sri Lankan authorities to bring them back to the country at the earliest.
Many people are helpless here. Thousands of Sri Lankans are trapped in their homes. We cannot return back to Sri Lanka due to the travel ban and lockdown restrictions. We wish to request our president to help us return back to the country and to undergo the quarantine process. If that can be done, it would be a great help to all of us. That is because many people here are helpless. We cannot go outside. All we can constantly hear is the sirens of ambulances.
We wish to request the President to implement a mechanism to bring back many Sri Lankans who are hoping to return to the country. Their children and families are in Sri Lanka. Those children need their parents at this time. Do not look down upon everyone because of the mistakes committed by a few. The situation in Italy is highly critical. We cannot even obtain medicine from hospitals. Everything is on lockdown. We are confined to our homes and we all hope to return to our country. We request the President to at least land us in Mattala if it is difficult to fly us to Katunaika. We are ready to undergo the quarantine process.
මත්තලට හරි එවන්න පුළුවන් නම් අපි ගෙනියලා නිරෝධාන කටයුතු වලට සියලුම දෙනා ලෑස්තිලා සිටිනවා.
A person who has arrived at the Booster prison in Gaul to distribute 150,000 rupees among 2 inmates has been arrested by the police special task force. The suspect has been handed over to the police for further investigations.
Preliminary investigations have shown that the suspect had attempted to provide money for 2 notorious criminals, Samant Kumara alias Velesuda and Mohammad Niaz, who are serving life sentences. The suspect had been identified as a 26-year-old resident of Balapitia. He is due to be produced before the Gaul magistrate today.
A government that received many creative artworks from many parts of the country for our initiative Nagitimu Sri Lanka. The competition is held under the theme of Sri Lanka you would like to see after we emerge out of these present challenges. Now here are some artworks we received today.
Gammadda, Nagitimu, Sri Lanka.
Sangka bathaka aterin nagitemu Sri Lanka hitamu idiriyama ekamanma hema nagitemu Sri Lanka heta idiwana navaloka hamuwe nagitemu Sri Lanka nagitemu Sri Lanka api nagitemu Sri Lanka. Aterin hinahi nagitemu සැක සංකා බාධක අතරින් නැගිටෙමු ශ්‍රී ලංකා හිතමු ඉදිරියම එකවන්ව හැම නැගිටිමු ශ්‍රී ලංකා හෙට ඉදිවන නවලෝක හමුවේ නැගිටිමු ශ්‍රී ලංකා නැගිටිමු ශ්‍රී ලංකා
ගම් මැද්ද නැගිටිමු ශ්‍රී ලංකා